Again, welcome everyone. I'm the first speaker in the conference and also your host for tonight. And I would like to talk a little bit around projects. Some of them fail. And what's actually the alternative, and to be a bit crisp around what we could do instead. And sort of as a starting point for this, let's talk about how to spend 1 billion kroner, or roughly 100 million US dollars in 10 years, and still be hated by your users. This is not how it's supposed to be, right? So if we look into it, we usually start out with a good intention. And in this case, this specific case, the need from the local government in Stockholm was to get some sort of application platform where students and teachers and parents and everyone can interact and talk about schedules and all of those things, like feedback from class and so on. So they started with thinking. So it's a pre-study and procurement sort of phase where we try to find out what should be in this app. We spend like roughly 3 or 4 years just doing that, formulating ourselves into this is exactly what we want to do. And also trying to find people who can do this at the lowest rates and so on. So then we spend a couple of years trying to actually execute on that plan. So now we know exactly what we want to have. So we try to build that. And in the end, we have some sort of solution in place. Took now 7 years, 6-7 years until we reached this point. And it's quite costly to run this application. There's a lot of license fees and so on to have this. And you would imagine then that, all right, so this, we spend a lot of money and a lot of time, so it should work now, right? Turns out that these are the kind of reviews that you get on app stores. This app makes me regret that I even had children in the first place. So that is not great reviews, right, on an app for school software. And 1-star rating is just too high. Or the mother of our child got an easy task giving birth because I'm the one that had to suffer this app. I mean, these are quite creative. People are really, they've invested in trying to write these reviews, right? So this is obviously not good. And the question is that, well, how can we end up in this kind of situation, right? So if we look at this again and look at when did we start to really sort of learn in this project? When did we actually get some feedback into the loop? You could argue that you got some feedback in the early, like 2012, 13 maybe, but actually around the late execution, we get maybe some feedback on the quality or if it was a good app or not. So that's probably too late, right? And the question we try to ask ourselves, how can we make it so that it looks something like this? We learn really early on and get a lot of feedback and hopefully a better product in the end. So let's talk about products a little bit, or maybe talk a little bit about the some dynamics that are involved in projects. So we have this person who has money and an ambition, an idea to build something, right? And they formulate a project. So please go and do stuff based on my great vision and so on. So people are working, they're building stuff like stars and squares and so on, so systems, and it gets in the hands of the users in the end. And feedback is sort of coming in after project and okay, so maybe we need to do some changes. Yeah, workers do some more, add some things. do a little bit of work. And yeah, it's sort of a cumbersome process of trying to get all of these things to fit together, right? And especially a lot of companies, they have multiple stakeholders. There are other people who have their own vision about things, and they are initiating other projects, and they're telling people to build other stuff. They're interacting with the first stuff and so on. And in the end, you get a mess. Right? So the perceived result of what we did is getting those reviews, right? 1 star is too high of a rating, or I regret that I even had children. So the way they were perceiving this as a sum of all the projects is not creating good results in the end. So another way of thinking about this would be that we have some sort of entrepreneur or product manager, someone who cares about this internal product. We co-create sort of where we're heading. We have a vision, we have a roadmap, we have a backlog, and so we use agile teams to work with this. We get early feedback with our customers, right? With the users. And we measure and make sure that we learn early on. So this is built in the way we work. And we do formulate for ourselves that it is something that we work with. We have an sort of internal product that we work with. Could also be the actual product. I mean, if you have an IT product, that is the thing that you're selling, yeah, sure. But sometimes it's an internal system that we're working on. Still, we're trying to view it not as sort of just a service that we're adding projects that are changing the service. It's something in itself, right, the product. And we can talk a lot about agile teams, things that you recognize, right? So we need to use some sort of Scrum, Kanban, going to do pair work or mob programming, be customer-centric, taking responsibility, you know the drill. Working agile teams, right? But it's not enough to just do great sort of software every 2 weeks or something like that. We also have to invest and make sure that the DevOps part of this works. So there's no use of having software, for instance, deliver every 2 weeks, and then it takes 3 months to get into production. So this is something we have to make sure it works as well. And DevOps can be described in many different ways, but we need to get through like coding and testing and deploying and so on as fast as possible with as high quality as we can. It's basically a cheap way of doing it as well when you have it in place, because it's going to be really cheap to do a release. And it's in its essence, it's like lean for software, and a culture where we feel that we are all responsible for what we put in production for our customers. So we need that, but we also need a way, and this is both where it starts and where it ends in a way, understanding our customers, agile product management, making sure that we are navigating around in the marketplace or with our user base and understanding what do they need, what do we need and they need right now. And this is, of course, a big area as well, but in general, we need to be customer-centric, right? Use tools like design thinking, understanding the problem, designing the solutions, finding those things, and making sure that we can actually distill this into a vision. Where are we heading? Because one way of putting this as well is, so Elon Musk said once that the pace of innovation is the thing that determines if we're going to succeed or not, or actually going to be competitive against other players in the market. So we could add to this picture around like the product development cycle here, the fast learning cycles. So making sure that everything we do here, and we look at both why we use sort of agile product management instead of maybe project management and DevOps, and agile teams is because we want to learn faster and adjust faster. What about that 1 billion crowns that we talked about? If we're using a more like product-oriented way of looking at this, chances are that we could have maybe a larger cost in the beginning. We have a lot of teams already set up when we're going, but it's not going to be that intensive in the middle, as you see. We're just going to have like, these are the people working with this product, and we're constantly adding value to it. And that's the second factor, right? When do we get the value? We talked about that a little bit earlier, that the value in the sort of project world comes a bit later, while we do want to have the value coming early and a lot in our product-oriented, customer-centric world.